the behavior as a relationship, the ends and scars of means.
No, my question is, I want you to tell me some of the things that you want, some of your needs or your wants. Can
Some of
you? Yes. Do you have any wants, or you don't want anything? You have everything that you need.
Oh, I need a lot of things.
I want you to share some of them with me, one or two.
Okay, so I need a stable job now.
Okay. Okay. What else? You don't want an iPhone, and wouldn't a Porsche car do? Okay. So as individuals, we have several ones, and this is what um, Professor Robbins tried to bring to them. So he brought in the idea that we should link the relationship between our ends. Okay, so the ends are the wants, the, our wants and our needs. Okay, they are our wants and our needs. And then to be able to satisfy these wants and needs, we need scarce resources. Okay, we need means, and the means, as you see, the means are the resources that will be able to satisfy the wants. So I said the ends are what? What are the ends? Ends, as used in the definition, refers to what? Are you with me, please?
Things you need.
Okay. So we are trying to digest Professor Lionel Robbins' definition of economics. The ends, as used here, refers to our wants and our needs. Okay, and our wants are so many. There are numerous ones. We have numerous ones. In economics, we say our wants are insatiable. When we say they are insatiable, it means you can't satisfy all your wants. Okay, there are so many, they are unlimited. And then he wanted to link or find a relationship between these wants or these ends, if I should say, and then the means. The means are the resources that will be able to satisfy our wants. So if Pat, for instance, wants an iPhone, she needs some resources to be able to get the iPhone. If she needs a RAV4, she needs resources to buy those to be able to get those needs. So the means or the resources that we need to be able to satisfy our wants, the resources he called means. Then he also pointed the fact that these resources are scarce. Okay, these resources are scarce. And so our wants are limited, are unlimited, but then the resources that we need to satisfy our wants are limited. So it creates a big problem. And that is what economics seeks to look at. So again, he also mentioned the fact that our means have alternative uses. The resources that we have at our disposal, the scarce resources that he talked about, the scarce means that he talked about, he says it has alternative uses. When you have any resource, you can put it to several uses. So you need to, because they are limited, you need to decide which of the users to put the resources to. So again, he defined economics as a science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. We should master this definition and appreciate what each of the terms stand for. I will come back to why he defined economics as a science. Okay, we'll talk about that as we move on today. Is this point clear to all of us? Is it clear to us? Can we move on? Can
Yes,
we move on,
please.
please? Okay.
Yes, please.
Then we have another definition by Paul Samuelson. He defined economics as a science that studies how man or society chooses from scarce productive resources that have alternative uses to produce goods and services for distribution and consumption now and in future. So you realize that his definition is similar to that of Roberts. He also believed that economics is a science. And he also talked about the scarcity of resources, how scarce resources are, and the fact that the resources have alternative uses. Okay, but he brought in the idea of distribution and consumption. So you can explain economics in your own words. There are several definitions I've said, but the key, whichever way you choose to define economics, there are some key concepts that we would always want to see. And some of these concepts is a fact that resources are scarce. And because resources are scarce and we have several needs and wants, would have to choose. Okay, so these are the prominent concepts that we expect to see in any definition that any way you would want to define economics. Or in looking at what we have seen, the various definitions that we have seen so far, we can say that economics is defined as the study of the allocation of our limited resources to satisfy our limited needs. So we understand that our resources are limited, they are scarce, and then we have to use these scarce resources. We use these scarce resources, limited resources or scarce resources, to satisfy our unlimited wants. These are the key concepts that we need to look at. Whichever way you want to explain it, these concepts should be prominent. Please, I hope that is clear. Are we together, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then I would want us to move to a concept or an idea we mentioned earlier on. Remember that in Professor Robin's definition, as well as Paul Samuelson's definition, they mentioned the fact that economics is a science. And I said we'll revisit that idea later on. Normally, when we hear of a science subject, which courses or subjects come to your mind?
Physics, chemistry.
Physics, chemistry, biology. They are the natural sciences. They are the sciences that we know. But here we are saying that economics too is a science. What makes economics a science? Why do we see it as a science? We need to appreciate this as well. So it is a science just like the natural sciences, the physics, the chemistry, the biology. Okay. But this type of science that we are looking at is different in a way because it is a social science. Okay. It's a social science. That is why Professor Robin says it is a science that studies human behavior. A social science is a science that studies human behavior. So ours is not like the science where you can undertake when you go to a chemistry lab, for instance, your unit of analysis will be, combine these chemicals and then you see the effect, the litmus paper, then you pour a chemical on it and you see that it will change. For ours, our unit of our analysis or our focus is human beings. So we study is a science that studies human behavior. Because of that, we consider it to be a social science. Please, is that clear?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
yes, please.
So why do we say that it's a science? What makes it a science? It is a
Madam,
science. Yes, please.
please, are you recording the session?
The unit records it.
Come again.
I said the department records it. So you
So
can
please,
take
how do we
personal.
retrieve?
Sorry,
How do we retrieve the recording, please?
we'll share the links with you. It will be shared with you. But I just as we would have done in a physical class, I would advise that as we are going on, you take personal notes as well. It helps. So that in case you don't have the recordings, you have that as well. But normally we record and we share it with you.
Okay, please.
That
On
doesn't
would there
mean
be any
you
platform?
take personal notes. Please come again.
Would there be any platform basically for only foundations of economics 1, where it will be shared, or are we going to access it on the Meet, Google Meet?
Please, the recording, if there is the recording, the link to the recordings will be given to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
And like I said, let's take our personal notes as well. It helps.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So I was saying that yes, economics is a science because it follows the scientific approach. Okay, the steps, the procedure, the process that you go through to do any experiment, to undertake any test or do an analysis in a natural science, you go through the same process. If we are undertaking an economic analysis. That is why we believe that, or we say that economics is a science. Okay. So for these sciences, these natural sciences, before they will come up with any law of gravity, the natural laws that we have, before they come up with any law, they go through a process. They go through a process before they arrive at the law. And as economists, we go through the scientific process as well. And because of that, we can conclude that the subject is a science. And what do we mean by the economic and scientific process? Whenever you observe a phenomenon, a phenomenon that you are interested in, that you want to study, you can, when you observe the phenomenon, and then you want to look at the relationship between the variables that you have, the first thing that you do is to put forward an informed guess or hypothesis. Okay, so you formulate your hypothesis to try and explain why the variables behave the way they do. So for instance, you observe that in your school, whenever the prices of plates, whenever they increase the prices of plates of, say, jollof rice, the quantity that people buy, how often people troop to the canteen to buy food reduces. When the prices increase, you don't see people frequenting the canteen. So you want to observe this phenomenon, right? The first thing is to form a hypothesis. So your hypothesis may be that, is it that when whenever the prices increase, people are buying less. That is why they don't attend or they don't go to the canteen that's often. Okay, this is an informed guess that you are formulating. We call it hypothesis. And then you need to test this hypothesis. Okay, so you would need to collect data. You go to interview them, you gather, you can administer a questionnaire or whichever way you look for data. So you collect your data. And then you may, various price levels, when it was 10, how many plates of jollof rice were we selling? When it increased to, say, 20, how many were bought? When it reduces, how many are bought? When you observe this, you collect this data, then you analyze the data. Okay, when you analyze the data, you are able to come up with an outcome. Okay. Whenever you analyze the data and you conclude, you'll be able to either accept or reject your hypothesis. So if normally the hypothesis is stated in a negative. Okay, it's stated in a negative. So you either accept or you reject the hypothesis. So this is the process, the scientific process that we are talking about. So 1, you identify the problem. 2, you set hypothesis. 3, you collect data. You analyze your data. You conclude. Then you either accept or reject your hypothesis. Okay. And then after the hypothesis, this is a one-off. We tested this on just jollof rice. But then you can try this hypothesis on several other goods. If, for instance, we apply this hypothesis on, say, books, and then we realize that for books too, just like it happens in the case of jollof rice, whenever the price rises, quantity demanded of it falls. They will try it on, say, clothes, shoes, fuel, several other products, okay, or at several locations as well. When these hypotheses are well tested and they are accepted, they become theory. The well-tested hypothesis becomes theory or a principle, okay? It becomes a theory and we call it a law. So we have several laws in economics. We have several laws in economics. The popular ones may be the law of demand, the law of supply, consumer behavior, and all, but we have several of them, have several laws and principles. And each of them went through the scientific process. And that is why we say economics is a science. Please, I hope that is clear. Are we together, please?
Yes.
All right. So for this course, there are some basic questions. When you are able to answer these basic questions or you analyze these basic questions, it means you are looking at economics. These are some of the reasons why we study economics. So this is what economics is all about. And so, for instance, if you're looking at production, consumption, and technological change, how do people choose what to consume? How to produce? How are these choices affected by the discovery of new ways of doing things? So how we go about what to produce, how to produce, okay? All these things borders on economics. This is what economics looks at: production, consumption, and then how technological change influences the things that we produce and what we consume. This is what economics looks at. We are also interested in wages and earnings. What determines people's income? Why do we have some people receiving more income than others. Okay, are their efforts similar or not? Okay. So we will look at some of these things. That is what economics looks at. Then unemployment. So when you hear unemployment issues in the news, you need to know that it borders on economic analysis as well. So unemployment, what causes unemployment? Okay. You realize that some people are affected than others. These are things that we discuss as far as economics is about. We are also interested in how government operates. So government spends, we see that government spending constructing roads and other infrastructure development. Okay. So government expenditure, what effect does it have? We know that the government imposes taxes. When e-levy was imposed on goods and services, what was the impact? This is part of the scope of economics. This is why we study economics. So the role that government plays is also important in economic analysis. Then I want to believe that we've all heard of inflation. Even our mothers in the market appreciate the impact of inflation. When there is persistent increase in prices of goods and services, what is the effect? All these borders on economic discussions, and that is why we'll be discussing some of these things as we move along this semester and next semester. Normally, when we are looking at the scope of economics, we are interested in two main broad branches in economics. We call them micro and macroeconomics. What's the meaning of micro? When you say something is micro, what does it mean?
It is small.
It's small. And so macro will be bigger. Okay. So we have two main branches. We have microeconomics and then we have macroeconomics. With microeconomics, we are interested in, or we are analyzing the basic individual economic units. It is the part of economics or the branch of economics, the aspect of economics that analyzes the decisions that are made by individual economic units. And what do we mean by individual economic units? When we analyze the decisions by individual consumers. Okay, so consumers, decisions by consumers, decisions by firms or businesses, decisions by government agencies. When you analyze these things, you are doing microeconomic analysis. Okay, microeconomic analysis, and we will delve into details so you appreciate what we mean when we say we are looking at it from the individual economic units. So the goal of microeconomics is to understand how the actions of consumers and producers affect price and output. And the micro, we look at individual consumers or households and how they take their decisions. Then we also look at firms and how firms also take their decisions. And we'll combine these two together. When you do such analysis, it borders on microeconomics. Then we also have macro. Macroeconomics deals, like we said, it looks at the larger picture. So it deals with explanation of a country's overall level of economic activity. So the micro looks at the individual consumer or households and firms, individual units, economic units. Then for the macro, we bring the economic activities or the overall economic activities. We bring them together. So macro is concerned with the aggregate behavior of consumers and producers, not individual consumers. So for instance, at the micro level, we'll be looking at, say, how consumers of the cars, consumers and producers of cars, how they interact. This is just one aspect of the economy. Okay. At the macro level, we are looking at all various sectors, bringing all consumers, various producers. We aggregate them. Okay. So macro economics is about aggregation of all consumers and producers. But then when we are doing micro analysis, we are interested in individual economic units. Please, is that clear? Is this point clear to all of us?
Yes, please.
Okay. So when we talk about macroeconomic analysis, you see that prominent in our discussion will be, for instance, issue that borders on money supply, government expenditure, government taxation, unemployment, inflation. They all borders on macroeconomic issues or analysis. They are part of macroeconomic analysis. The main goal of macroeconomic analysis is to appreciate the level of national output. So we want to know the aggregate output or to determine the national income. So national issues of national income and determination of aggregate outputs. Is the goal of macroeconomic analysis. So we should be able to distinguish between microeconomics and micro. Like I said, micro looks at the individual decision making or the individual economic units, whilst macro explains the country's overall level of economic activity. So in explaining these phenomena, whether it is a microeconomic analysis that we are doing or a macroeconomic analysis that we are doing, we like we indicated earlier on, want to understand the phenomena, and it's by so doing that we go through the scientific process. So we identify a problem, want to know the facts that influences this phenomenon. Okay, so we formulate a hypothesis or proposition, and then to observe the human behavior. What happens if one of the variables changes? What happens? And then by so doing, we are able to reset the hypothesis, and then we are able to test the hypothesis to see the relationship that exists between these variables that we are talking about. Okay, so for instance, whenever we are testing a hypothesis, we are putting forward a hypothesis, or even if when we conclude and come up with a law, we tend to use some terms. And one of the terms is the ceteris paribus assumption. The ceteris paribus assumption. Why do we need a ceteris paribus assumption? You remember that we mentioned the fact that our science is not a natural science. It is a social science. It's a social science because we study human behavior. And human beings can change their mind at any time. Okay, it's not like the physical sciences that we know that whenever we pour this gas on say, a paper or a litmus paper or a chemical on a litmus paper, the result you have color green or color. So no matter where you are conducting a test, provided you pour the right amount of chemical, the same amount of chemical, the results will be the same. This cannot always be the same for human beings. Because of that, we always use the ceteris paribus assumption, okay? And the ceteris paribus assumption means all things being equal. So when we are stating a law in economics, we say all things being equal, holding everything else constant. Let everything else be equal, okay? Because we are dealing with human behavior. For instance, if I should use the example that I gave of the increment in the price of plate of rice and the effect that it had on quantity. Okay, is it only price that influences how many plates of jollof you go for? Is it just price that affects the quantity of rice that we take? Or the other factors that may affect quantity? Yes. Please, I expect you to contribute to the discussion. So let me hear you. Who is talking? Razak. Razak, talk to me. Apart from
Yes,
the
ma'am.
price, can you think of any other factor that may influence the number of plates of jollof that you buy?
Hello,
Eh,
madam.
Yes, Razak, I'm listening.
the quantity.
My question is, apart from price, is there any other factor that may influence the quantity of plates that we buy? Mercy, let's hear you.
I think the quality, you see, sometimes the taste of the food, when the taste changes, people tend to
Okay,
reduce the number of
so everyone's nice at first. We were all trooping to buy it. If this changes, we can stop purchasing it or reduce the quantity that we are buying. Any other? Yes, Richard.
Madam, the location of the venue, the location also constitutes.
The location. All right. Any other?
the number of people who go there to purchase.
Please, I can barely hear you. If you could come again.
The number of people that go there to purchase.
Okay. If the number of people, the population increases, if, for instance, as a school called canteen, and previously the number of students were 50, it will influence the quantity. If now the number of students increases to say 200, means it is likely that the quantity of food that will be bought will increase. And normally, so it can, although we have said, points to the fact that there may be several factors that may influence a phenomena. Okay, but normally when we are doing economic analysis, we would want to look at the effects of each of the variables at a time. We want to simplify the analysis. So we look at it individually before we bring all of them together. So instead of lumping, we understand that for quantity of jollof rice, plates of jollof rice that we are purchasing, taste and preferences can influence it, like our colleague said, the number of people who are demanding it, and several others, income and all that. They can all influence it. It's not just the price. Okay, but we don't lump them together. We normally want to simplify the analysis, like I said. So whenever we are, for instance, looking at the relationship between price and quantity of it, we want to hold all the other factors like taste, like income, like population, or the number of people demanding it. We want to hold all the other factors constant and just look at assuming that it is just price that influences quantity. And when we are able to appreciate the individual relationship, it is then that we bring all of them together into a model, then we understand the holistic picture. Okay, that is why we normally go for the ceteris paribus assumption. And the ceteris paribus means holding everything else constant, or all other things being equal. Okay, all other things being equal. Now, there are still under the scope of economics, there are other issues that we need to appreciate. And one of them is the difference between positive and normative economics. Some statements that are made are deemed to be positive statements. Others are deemed to be normative statements. When we are looking at the scope of economics, we should know the difference between these two. So for instance, let's look at some statements and then see which of them is positive statements. Please mute yourself for me. Which of them is a positive statement, which one of them is a normative statement? We know we hear economic discourse in the news. So for instance, you open your radio, you tune in to any of the popular radio stations, and then you heard that when they were having a panel discussion, someone said, when petrol prices in Ghana were increased from 10 cedis to 15 cedis in the early 2020, everybody explained that cost of living will increase. Okay. When you put forward such a statement, we say the statement is a positive statement, and we'll explain why it is a positive statement. Okay. Now let's see another statement. Then the person continued to say that government ought to subsidize fuel prices in order not to increase the cost of living. We hear people say this all the time. Petrol prices have increased. When the price increase, cost of living increase. When you say that, it's a positive statement. And when you say that the government, cost of living is increasing, the government has to increase, subsidize fuel. They should subsidize fuel for us so that the prices will reduce, and then our cost of living will come down. Such a statement is deemed to be a normative statement. So let's distinguish between the two. What makes the first statement a positive statement, and what makes the last one a normative statement? A positive statement deals with facts. It is an objective or scientific explanation of the workings of the economy. So if you state a fact, if you make an objective statement, we say it is a positive statement. Please, is that clear? Please, I hope you are with me.
Yes, please.
Okay. So if we say that when the price increases, quantity will reduce. This is a fact. All right. This is a fact. Okay. Please, can you still see my
Yes,
please, can you see
please.
my screen? Okay. So for a positive statement, it is objective. It states a fact. And the first statement that we saw stated a fact. Okay. When price is 10 cedis and then it increases to 15 cedis, it is a fact that the cost of living will increase. Okay, but you are going to spend more on food, so the cost of living will increase, and this is a statement of fact. It is stating what is the situation and not what has to be done. This is clear.
Yes, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
Then the so these are some examples of positive statements. So, as for instance, the demand model predicts that when the price of a commodity increases, quantity sold of the commodity decreases. When price is high, quantity is low. This is a fact. Okay. When you say that when government imposes tax on a good, the price of the good will rise. And we've seen this as a fact. It's an objective statement. When e-levy, for instance, was imposed, please mute yourself. When e-levy was imposed, prices of goods and services increase. When, for instance, we increase please make sure you mute yourself if you are not answering the question. When VAT is increased, prices of goods and services are going to increase as well. So this is an objective fact. Whenever you say you state a fact, it is a positive statement. The opposite is the normative statement. The normative statement offers a prescription. It gives a prescription and a recommendation as to what ought to be done. So it passes judgment. What needs to be done or what ought to be done. Any statement, economic statement, that portrays what needs to be done or gives judgment as to what has to be done. It's called a normative statement. That is why the second statement that we saw earlier on, we said it was a normative statement because it says government ought to subsidize fuel prices in order not to increase cost of living. When you state what ought to be done or pass judgment as to what should be the case, we call it a normative statement. So you should know the difference between a positive statement and a normative statement. These are some examples of normative economics. The government should subsidize health bills of the aged instead of the rest of population. So if she said the government should subsidize the cost health care of aged, you're stating your personal judgment as to what should be done. So we say it's normative statement. We ought to extract oil in large quantities from the rocks in Ghana. This is a normative statement. Okay. Are we clear up to this point? Do you have any questions before we proceed? All right, let's go on then if we are clear. When we're defining economics, in our attempt to define economics, you remember that we said there are some key concepts that should always be prominent when you are explaining whichever way you want to explain economics and want to revisit these concepts again. One of the prominent concepts, and that is why we study accounts in the first place, is the concept of scarcity. Scarcity. When we're looking at Professor Robin's definition, remember that we said the resources or the means that we are going to use to satisfy our ends or our wants and needs. Their resources are scarce. They are limited. Okay, they are limited. And we need to use these limited resources to cater for our unlimited or insatiable needs. That's why we need to study these concepts. They are very key, fundamental economic concepts. And then we need to appreciate them, or we should be able to explain them. Okay. Now, because we have said that because we have said that our wants are unlimited. Meanwhile, the resources that we need to satisfy these wants are limited. It means you have to choose. You are forced to choose. So you may have a list. If I ask you to give me a list of all the things that you want, I don't know the paper that can contain it. Okay, because we have several things, so many things that we want. Right? So because we don't have the resources to cater for all our wants, it means we have to choose them. So we cannot have everything that we want. We are forced to choose among the alternative ones that we have. So in that sense, scarcity is forcing us to choose. Because resources are scarce, we have to choose. Right? That is why sometimes you call economics the science of choice. And it brings to fore the fact that because resources are scarce, we are forced to choose. Because it explains how people choose amongst all their numerous ones because of scarcity. When they are choosing, what do you do? Okay, because you have several wants and needs, you have to arrange them. You have to arrange them in order of importance as you prefer it. So we call that a scale of preference. A scale of preference is a list of all your unsatisfied wants arranged in order of priority or order of preference. So my scale of preference will be different, maybe different from yours. Because for me, probably my shoes are more important. I rank my shoes more than, say, a wristwatch or a handbag. So the shoes will be on top of my scale of preference. Books may be last. For another person, books may be number one on the list. So every individual has his or her own scale of preference. Okay, so a scale of preference is when you provide a list of your unsatisfied wants arranged in order of priority, arranged in order of preference. We call that a scale of preference. So in this schedule or table, we have Mr. Carl, and this is a scale of preference for Mr. Carl. He needs a bed, he needs mattress, shoes, wristwatch, radio setting set. So this is how he has arranged it. Okay. This is how he has arranged. This is his list of preferences. And this may be different from another person's list. So normally what happens is that when you have a list of preferences like this, it means you use your scarce resources to cater for the things at the top of your scale of preference, right? You satisfy them first, okay? And then the ones that you are not able to satisfy because of the scarce resources, you call them opportunity cost. This is that clear?
Yes, please.
So in economics, we say
Yes, please.
opportunity cost is a cost of the best alternative forgone. The cost of the best alternative forgone. Because in order for Mr. Kwao, for instance, to have the bed and mattress, because his resources are scarce, he is forced to forgo some of his needs. Some of his needs will be unmet in order to be able to afford the rest. So the foregone alternatives, the best foregone alternatives, we call that opportunity cost. Normally, there is a concept that we use to explain opportunity cost, and that is the concept of the production possibility frontier, the production possibility frontier, or the PPF. Some call it PPC, the production possibility frontier, or the production possibility curve. It's the same thing. This curve or this diagram helps us to appreciate the concept of scarcity, and it explains further the idea that whenever we have to choose, if you have to choose more, in order to have more of one item or ones, you need to forego the other because the resources are scarce. You don't have abundance to be able to have more of each. So if you want more of A, it is you need to forego some of B to have more of A. And that is what the production possibility frontier tells us. So because resources are scarce, you need to vary them in proportion. Okay? You get a bit of that, and a bit of that, then you combine it. You can't have more of all the goods. So you have to choose which one to have. And in doing so, you need to forego some of them. Okay. So we are going to illustrate this. We've said that it explains the concept of scarcity and choice. The fact that you can't have all goods, and you have to choose. If you want more of one, you need to forego some of the others. So the PPF is a combination of outputs per period of time from a given resource allocation that is fully employed using the best known techniques of production. So when you combine goods, various combinations of goods, okay, and how much you can have of them. So we are using, for instance, capital goods. A country and economy is deciding to either produce, to go for capital goods. So capital goods like factories, bridges, tractors, and tools. Because resources are scarce, we can't have we can't have all the capital goods and have all the consumable goods at the same time. It means if you're having more capital goods, it means you have to forfeit some consumable goods, and the opposite applies. So consumable goods like clothes, foodstuff, and the rest. We are using this schedule to explain the concept of production possibility curve, and we said that the production possibility frontier or curve helps us to explain scarcity and why, because of scarcity, you need to choose. So we have alternatives, alternative A, B, C, D, E. Sorry. Alternative A, B, C, D, E. And each of the alternatives have various combinations. So for alternative A, we can decide to go for no. Also, for instance, now the consumable goods, we are going for cloth, and then the capital goods, we are going for tractor. In the economy, we can decide not to produce 0 units of cloth and 4 units of tractors. That is one combination. 0 units and then 4 units of tractors. Then if we want a bit of cloth, in order to get 40 units of cloth, what is happening to, so if you are going for alternative B, what happens to tractors? In order to get 40 units of cloth, you see, at first we're having we're having 0 units. In order to have a bit of the cloth, what happens to the tractor?
We have
You
to reduce
reduce.
the number of tractors.
You see that the number of tractor reduces. So it means we have forgone some tractor in order to get a bit of the cloth. If we still want more cloth, then it means we have to further reduce the tractor, the number of tractors that we have. Okay, and this is the choice that we are making because resources are scarce. Resources are scarce, and so we need to, in order to have more of one, you need to reduce the. We can go on, so we have 100 units of cloth, and then no units of tractor. This portrays the problem of scarcity and the choices that we make. We have used the schedule or the table to draw a diagram. So the first one was a tabular representation of how scarce resources are, and because of that, we have to choose. If you plot the table, you have a diagram like this. So we have the tractors on the vertical axis, and then the flows on the horizontal axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, just as we saw it on the table, units for the units for tractors. So you see the points A, B, C, D, E are the various combinations, and a line joining the various combinations, okay, that fully utilizes resources. We call that the production possibility frontier. So the production possibility frontier is defined by points A, B, C, D. Please, is that clear?
Yes, please.
Yes,
And
please.
on this curve, we are fully utilizing all our resources. All our resources are being fully utilized on this curve, all right? The A, B, C. Would you want to go? Should we go for point Z? Should we go for point Z? Can we afford point Z? Point Z will be about 2 units of tractor and 40 units of 40 units or so of clothes. Yes, please, let's hear you.
Yes, for us to be able to afford both of the items.
So we can afford point Z. Normally we say it is attainable. Point Z is attainable. We can afford it. Our resources, we can use our resources to provide point Z. But mind you, if we go for point Z, some of our resources are lying idle. They are being underutilized. Okay, they are being underutilized. And because resources are scarce, for us economists want to make maximum use of our resources. So we believe in full employment. We don't want our resources to lie idle. We want to make efficient use of our resources. So although point Z is attainable, it is inefficient. It's attainable, but it is inefficient because some of our resources are lying idle. What about point U? How about point U? How about point U? Is point U attainable?
No, please. I don't think there will be any resources available for
Okay.
Point U.
So you remember that I said points A, B, C, for us to go for any of the combinations A, B, C, D, E. It means we are making maximum use, we are fully utilizing our resources. So it means any point above these points, above the PPF, is unattainable. It's unattainable. Okay? It's unattainable. We would have enjoyed more units of both factor and more units of both factor and blood. But then our resources are scarce because our resources are scarce. Point U is unattainable. It's not within our range. Okay. So if you want a point that is a combination that is both attainable and efficient, it should be the points on the line. Okay. So when you draw your PPF, you should be able to explain these concepts, use it to highlight the concept of scarcity. Those resources are scarce. You see that things like we can't attain them. They are unattainable. All right. And because they are scarce too, we need to choose. So the issue of choice comes in. If we want more, we are at point A, 4 units of tractor, 0 units of 0 units of cloth. To be able to get more than some units of cloth, that is 40 units of cloth, we need to reduce the quantity. So from 4, it comes down to 3. So so the PPF portrays or explains, we use it to explain the concept of scarcity, we use it to explain the concept of points. And so to be able to get more of one mix, you need to choose less of the other. You have to forgo some of the other. This is less clear. Is this point clear?
Yes, please.
All right.
Yeah.
Are there any questions before we proceed? We've looked at the basic concepts as far as economics is concerned. That is the issue of scarcity and choice. All right. Does someone have a question? Okay. Then let's move on. So we should know what each of them connotes, each of the points. Okay, those that are efficient and attainable, we should, or feasible. Okay, those that are feasible or attainable, those that are efficient. If we say it's efficient, it means we are making maximum use of our resources. No resources lying idle. If we say feasible, it means it's attainable. It means our resources can use our resources to cater for them. So we should know the points. Points A, B, C, D are attainable, they are feasible. Z is feasible, but Z is inefficient. A, B, C, D are both feasible or attainable, and then at the same time efficient. So we should take note of that. Now, let's briefly look at this before we take a break and then meet again later on. So we normally, I told you earlier on that we normally hear the word economy, the Ghanaian economy, the global economy. We hear economy a lot. When we hear economy, what does it mean? An economy is a mechanism that helps allocate the scarce resources among competing users. So a situation that describes how the scarce resources are allocated among the competing or the alternative users. We call it economy, so economic analysis. So when we are doing economic analysis, we would want to look at questions like some basic economic fundamental questions, basic questions like what goods and services should we produce? So what to produce? How to produce it? Do we use capital intensive or labor intensive? What to produce? Why should we produce a consumable goods and not capital goods? Okay, if I want to produce clothes, why should I go for children clothes and not clothes for adults? So what to produce and how to produce the goods? For whom to produce the goods for? Okay, for whom to produce the goods? So what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. These are three basic questions. Sometimes people add others to it as well. Now these are the three basic economic questions: what to produce, how to produce, who to produce for. These are the basic questions that we look at when we are studying the economy. Now, in looking at the economy, there are two main things I want to look at, or two main categories of analysis that we want to do. That is decision makers and coordination mechanism. By decision makers, we want to look at the basic units that take decisions in the economy. Any person or organized group of persons that take decisions, that make choices. Okay, we can do economic analysis by looking at decision makers. We can also do an analysis of the economy by looking at the coordination mechanism. And what we mean by the coordination mechanism are the arrangements that are put in place in order to allocate the resources that we are talking about. So what are the factors? What are the systems that are put into place in order to allocate resources? The arrangement that coordinates or harmonize individual economic choices. So we are going to look at these two. So first, let's look at the decision makers. The decision makers, as we indicate earlier on, is a person or organized group of persons that make decisions. And these individuals or group of persons that make decisions include the households, the firms, and governments. So these are the key decision makers in the economy. Households. Households is the same as individuals. So sometimes we say individual households. Okay, individuals, firms, individual consumers, and firms. Firms also make decisions. As individuals, we make decisions. Firms make decisions. Government agencies make decisions. So these are the decision makers. So when we talk about households, we are looking at a group of people living together as a decision-making unit. One person can constitute a household. If a father, a mother, and children take economic decisions as a unit, we consider it to be as a household as well. So every individual in the economy belongs to a household. Okay, and the household aims at maximizing its satisfaction. As an individual, you want to maximize the satisfaction from goods and services. So that is the aim of the individual or the household. We maximize the consumption of. Okay. Then we have the firm. And the firm is also a decision maker. The firm is in charge of the production of goods and services. So they seek to produce goods and services. And in producing goods and services, they also take decisions. They take decisions because, like we saw earlier on, they have to decide which of the goods and services to go in for. So all firms, all producers are referred to as firms here. The producers of goods and services, they are the people the units that we are classifying as firms. So no matter how big or small the entity is, or what the nature of business that they are into, we are classifying them as firms here. Please, is that clear? Is that clear? Okay,
Yes,
I
please.
will. Okay,
Yes, please.
so firms also make decisions. Firms make decisions. And for firms, what will be the goal of the firms? We saw that for individuals, our goal is to make sure that we maximize our satisfaction. We want to get more goods satisfied from consuming goods and services. So what will be the goal for a firm?
Producing goods and services to satisfy its customers' needs.
Okay. What else? The focus primarily be on its customers. What will be the primary aim or goal of the firm?
Also to make profit.
Make profit, to maximize their profit. Yes, it's true that the firms have their interest, they want to produce goods for us. It's not just because they want us to enjoy the goods. But the primary aim or goal for the firm is to maximize their profit. They want to make profit. That is why they are into production. So for the individual, want to maximize our goods and services, the consumption of goods and services. They want to spend as less as possible, but then get maximum satisfaction, maximum goods and services. But firms would want to increase their profits. All right. So we'll revisit some of these conflicting goals in our subsequent discussion. Then we said the government is also a decision maker. So the government sometimes produce goods and services. Some public goods need to be produced by the government. And then it also seeks to the redistribution of income and wealth. Okay, so government is in charge of the production of defense, the police service and all the security services. So defense, law enforcement, public health, the transportation system, construction of roads and all that, education. These are services that are provided by the government. And they need to decide if the government wants to provide more roads, then it means we can't have a lot of hospitals being built. So scarcity, the government also faces the problem of scarcity. Right? So they need to decide what to produce or what service to provide. That is why we are saying that the government is also a decision maker. They need to decide which of them. If, for instance, there is civil uprising in any place, for instance, what is happening in Boku or any community, if they are spending more on security or defense, it means they will have less resources for infrastructure. So the government has to decide they are providing security, and when they are providing security, it means the provision of other resources will be less. So they have to decide. That's why we are saying the government is also a decision maker. This is exactly it. Okay. Then I said we are looking at the aim of the government is to maximize social welfare. That is the main aim or goal of the government, to maximize social welfare. I mentioned that we need to look at the decision makers, and then also the second category that we said we're going to look at is the coordination mechanism. Okay, so who allocates, how are resources allocated in an economy? Okay, broadly, there are two mechanisms. That is the command mechanism or the socialist economy, and then the market mechanism or the capitalist economy. But sometimes we bring in a third one, that is a mixed economy. All right. I want us to pause here. Please read ahead on these three types of economic systems or coordination mechanism. When we meet again, we'll conclude our discussion, and then if there are any other things you are not clear on as far as this morning discussion is concerned, you can bring it up and then we'll discuss it. All right. So I would want us to end here. Please, when we get our course manual, let's read ahead so that we'll be able to contribute to the discussions in class. I think we did fairly good this morning. I expected to continue. Right. Thanks for your time for this morning. We'll meet again.
Created any group for this class, this particular course?
Where is Samuel?
Please, some of you should do that for me.
Someone should create
Okay.
the group.
Some of you should coordinate.
Where are we supposed to join it?
Hello, please. I need the link to join the accounting platform, the foundation of accounting, the one Sami created yesterday. So please, if anyone have it, kindly send it to me. Cool.
Hello, please. I sent a link into the group for the principle of accounting so you can join.
Yeah, I've joined it. Thank you very much.
Welcome. You're welcome. Auntie B is doing the tea.
You are licking the thing. Yes. Now what are you doing? No problem.
Mommy, if mommy look at mommy, your room.
It's for who?
Your own, the one that you using to wash your mouth.
Put it down. When you finish, then I'll give you the baby para. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Oh. Awesome. Exactly.
Mommy.
When you finish it, then I'll give you the para. What? So the teeth will be white. But so the teeth will be white. Okay.
I don't. Yeah, done. Yeah, let us see. Stop. I'll see my thing. You dirty the broom. You need to eat the floor. I can put it down.
Hey. Yes. But one now. So